Hey guys, welcome to the only Dune Spice Wars guide you're going to need to become a master at Dune Spice Wars. Dune Spice Wars is a 4X slash RTS hybrid game. It's really good, it's really fun, it's extremely underrated, but it's extremely complicated to play. But once you get the hang of it, you're going to become addicted. I know. My name's Cream the Legend, aka the Champ. I co-host events on the Circuit Discord for this game. We run community tournaments, cash prizes, free for all, two versus two, community patch, and all kinds of stuff. So the link for the Discord is down below if you want to join the Discord to play private games, private lobbies, tournaments, link with other players that love the game and enjoy the game as well. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So, Dune Spice Wars, we're just gonna load up a skirmish here, random, any faction really. Let's just go with somebody easy. We're gonna go with somebody that can pillage, like Fremen. And you get to choose your counselors. Look forward to future videos where we're gonna go into the counselors, the factions, the early game, the mid game, the late game, how to win, all the different win conditions, etc. But for now, we're just gonna choose Fremen, and we're gonna load into a game. And I'm going to explain to you the basics in this first video, and I'm going to show you how to start the game up and all the different things in the game and how to, operate inside the game. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get right into it. So when you load into the game, you're going to notice that you are only starting with one region revealed, and it's your main base region. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a couple of ornithopters and a handful of units. So on the right side of the game right here, this is where you manage your recruitment and your army and your ornithopters. And for Fremen, they're kind of unique in the sense that they require a harvester, okay? So when you first load into the game, you get your first spice field revealed. And as you know, in Dune, the spice must flow, the spice controls life, the spice expands consciousness, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, you spawn with your one tile revealed and your one ornithopter. You're going to want to set your ornithopter onto recon mode automatic, and you're going to direct it to your spice field. So let's unpause. And the ornithopters, as you create them, we're going to create our first units. You can select rally point here, and for factions that have airfields, you can choose where they fly, but since Fremen don't have airfields, it's going to spawn right here. So you can see the ornithopters discovering the region, and then once the ornithopters discovering the region, because it's set on auto mode, it's going to go on to the next region. So to take a village, you take your army, and the army will march toward the village. Now let's set the game speed to 2x just for the sake of learning. Normally, guys, in multiplayer, the games are played on 1.5 times speed, and the settings usually evolve. Everything is set to normal as far as wind strain, as far as sandstorm, sandworms, etc., and all the stuff that happens in the game. All that stuff is normal. Okay, so your units are going to run over here, and we can see that this village has 2 militia, and now your units have to kill the units here, and then you're going to get an option to capture the village, and that's the first mechanic you have to learn. So we're going to let our spice harvester harvest spice here. Okay, so your units have to kill the units here to capture the village, and we're going to recruit some more units, and then we're going to get into you have to watch out, there's a sandworm here, so the sandworms can eat you if you're on rock here. You can see the sandworms trying. Well, let me show you like what happens when a sandworm pops up. If your unit's on the sand while the sandworm is active like this, you can see the sandworms chasing your unit around. I'm not sure why it's not eating it. Okay, there it goes. So anyway, so once you kill all the militia, you are able to capture a village just like I did. I chose capture. Okay, let's take a pause here and understand a couple of things. I created another ornithopter. I'm going to set this one to scout. And then the ornithopters are going to roam around. They cost money, which we'll talk about in a second. But they roam around and they reveal the regions, right? So in a first region, once you capture a village, you can start to build buildings in this village, and then you can recruit your own militia to protect the village from enemies and from raiders. Okay, so in this case, we're going to build our wind trap here for the Fremen, and I'm not going to go too deep into the mechanic of each faction, but the Fremen don't have spice refineries, which would be required to be built here to harvest spice. But so for them, you build water, right? Now let's just take a look at the UI here. So here are your basic resources for Dune Spice Wars. On the left, it'll show you the counselors that you chose and what each counselor does, which we'll get into in a future video. This slider right here is how much spice you're selling, okay? And the more spice you sell, the more income you make. This is where we see our income. This is called Solari in Dune Spice Wars, and right now I'm making 64 Solari a day. Okay, this is your plascrete. This is how much, basically, how much building material you have. And each building that you build, you can see I built a wind trap here, which is going to create water for me, which is also one of the resources. The wind trap costs 150 plascrete, okay? Then our next resource is manpower. And manpower is acquired through building recruiting stations. And this is your next resource. It's spaceship parts. That comes from another building in the game. Your other resource is water. Water is very important. You can see here my unit has a bar. The health bar is green and the supply bar is orange. And the supply comes from water because we're on a desert planet. So in order for units to run around, they have to be hydrated. And if the unit is in a foreign territory like mine was just before I captured it, it loses water. So you have to be careful to make sure that your units are supplied. Okay? So we captured our first village. We're gonna set our ornithopters out to explode. And now when you capture your first village, you can open up your tech tree. Okay? Your tech tree is what allows you to research technologies. You can queue up 4 at a time. The technologies, the more knowledge that you have, the faster your technologies research, right? And your knowledge comes from building certain kinds of buildings. They're called research hubs. All of these buildings have a cost. A plascrete factory, if you build it here, will make you 10 plascrete. It costs 50 plascrete to build, and it has an upkeep of 20 solari, right? So the more buildings you build, the more upkeep cost you have. So you need to harvest more spice and make more money to support those buildings, okay? The recruitment office is, we were talking about manpower. Each unit costs manpower. So you can see that me building this one infiltrator costs 30 manpower. Okay? So in order to have more manpower to build large armies or rebuild your armies after they die, you need recruitment offices. And we talked about knowledge. Now there's some other buildings here, and generally speaking, all the buildings are the same for each faction, except a couple have some unique buildings, which we'll talk about later. Okay, we'll talk about all the buildings a little bit later. So me capturing a village costed me authority, which is another resource in this game. So you can see here, if I want to capture this village, it's going to cost me 37 authority, and I'm going to have to kill these 2 militias, and then I'm going to capture it afterwards. Okay? And then the last thing up here at the top is your hegemony score. A regular village, if we press our I key, it will reveal some of the things on the map to us, okay? A regular village gives you 600 hegemony. One of the ways to win the game is to get to 30,000 hegemony. So you can do that through capturing villages and also building these special buildings called crafts workshops. But you can see that a crafts workshop requires valuable trinkets and a special region. So a special region is a region such as this one. It's called the Mundu Vale. There's about, I think there's 11 different kinds of specials in the game, and each one has a unique quirk to them. Like, for example, in this situation, if you capture the Mundu Vale, your buildings consume no water and your units lose supply 50% slower inside. I'm not sure if it's inside the region or overall in the map. I think it's inside the region, but it's a pretty good special, right? It could be actually all over the map. I'm not sure. But that would allow me to build this building inside that region called the Crafts Workshop, and that will add passive hegemony to my score. So let's just progress through the game a little bit, and then we're going to understand a little bit more about it. So I captured my first region. I'm playing Fremen, so I need lots of water. I have my sieges revealed because I'm playing Stilgard. This is stuff that we'll go over later, so don't worry about it. But I can trade with my sieges here, and I get all these resources, but it costs me water. So I built my first wind trap, and I still have 8 water to spare. Now that 8 water to spare is very important because it allows me to move through the non-captured regions, which don't belong to me. That will allow my units to survive for a period amount of some amount of time, so that I'm able to kill the militia and capture the village to make it my own. So I have another ornithopter. I'm going to set it to scan, and now the ornithopter's flying around scanning, right? And what I'm looking for my second region ideally is a plascrete region, because I'm going to need a lot of plascrete in the start of the game to build all of my production, to build my research hubs, to build my recruitment offices, to build my plascrete stations, right? So let's start with a research hub here. It's 150 plascrete, and it costs 2 water. Each building has a water upkeep on it, and you can see it says requirement is 2 water, but it gives me +1 knowledge. So the more knowledge I get, the faster I can go through my tech tree. Okay, and so it's important to get a lot of techs for the game, especially late game, because you're gonna need all of them to fight. So here's a plascrete region, right? So I'm gonna select my army, and then I'm gonna go over here. There's 2 militia in this village, and I'm gonna capture this village. Hopefully my units do not run out of water before. You can see right now, you can see their water is draining. You see the orange bar is running out because I only have 17 water, which really isn't a lot, right? So I'm going to continue to recruit some units, use my manpower up, and I'm going to capture this region while my guys kill these guys, so I can capture the village, which is going to cost me 37 authority from here. And my ornithopters are continuing to scout out the map. Okay, here's another special region. It's the Space and Cruiser Wreck, and this one is actually very good. It gives you +1 spaceship parts, which is a very important resource to build your big capital ship. Right? You can see this one costs you 100 space parts, but that's not unlocked until you get to 5,000 up here. Okay, but again, just take a lot of the stuff that you're hearing with a grain of salt. As this video series progresses, we're gonna do a good job of trying to explain this stuff to you. Okay, here's a very important thing. We see this raider appeared, right? These raiders, for every faction, including Fremen, until you ally this siege and your relationship with this siege goes above 50, I think, these raiders are going to periodically run out, and they're going to try to liberate your villages from you, because they're the native Fremen and they don't want you having crap, even if you're playing Fremen, which is, you know, maybe a little bit inconsistent, but it does work for the rest of the houses, right? So this guy's going to run over here, and for the sake of education, I'm going to show you what he's going to do. So I'm going to build I'm going to build more water here. Okay. And then at some point in the game, this menu unlocks. Okay, this is your espionage menu. You get to recruit agents throughout the game, okay? And there's technologies you can research. For example, if you see spying logistics, it says plus 200% agent recruitment speed. These guys are very important, okay? Because when I assign them to one of these 4 areas, they give me a boost. Every agent that I put on Arrakis gives me +1 authority. Watch, if I move them over here, and then it goes to +6, and if I put them on Arrakis, it goes to +7. In the early game, you want a lot of authority, a lot of plascrete, a lot of manpower, and a lot of knowledge. You're going to need all that stuff. If I put him here in Chom, he gives me +10 Solari. You can see Solari's 56. If I move him out, it goes to 46. If I put him in Spacing Guild, it gives me 1 manpower. So you see it was -5. But if I move him out, it's -6. And the reason right now my manpower is draining is because you need manpower to heal your units. Okay? So right now I have 20 manpower, and because my units took damage killing these guys to take this village, I need to use my manpower to heal up my units. So this guy's going to run over here, and he's going to attempt to liberate my village. And you can see this is the liberation symbol, right? So I have to go over there and stop him. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay? And while that's happening, I'm going to continue to explain to you this menu. This menu is super important. This is the espionage menu. Not only do you assign agents to each one of these categories, you can also put agents on your enemies, and you can also put agents on counterintelligence, which means there's a mechanic in the game called assassination, which I'll do a completely separate video on. And then if you put your agents on your enemies, you get intelligence production, which is over here. Okay, so let's go back to the game here. We're gonna kill our raider here. You can see my units are gonna kill him, and his liberation is gonna stop. And that means I'm not gonna lose this village, because as just like you can capture villages, you can liberate them too. Okay, so next we're gonna go capture another region here. We're gonna capture the Space and Cruiser wreck. Now keep in mind, my score right now is 1200, right? Because each one is 600. A regular region is 600. But when I capture the Space and Cruiser wreck, it's going to be 1600. So that means my score will be 2600 after I capture Space and Cruiser wreck. Now this only has two raiders here, but there's regions out there that have like sieges. To kill sieges, you have to kill all these units. This region has 3 rebels, sorry, militia to kill, right? 3, some have 4, some have 5. Anyway, my units are going to get over here. We're going to kill these guys, and then we're going to continue to build our plascrete, manpower, research. And then this is our first Landsrat Council. Okay, let's take a look here at the Landsrat Council. Every in-game, our game calendar here is here. Every 20-something in-game days, we're going to get a chance to vote on charters. Now, the Fremen, they start off with very little Landsrad. These guys start off with almost 200. And the smugglers also start off with very little Landsrad, right? So I'm gonna, because I can't really sway the vote here with my little votes. I have the ability to incite a rebellion because of what Romalo does. I'm not gonna do that. I'll explain that stuff later in a separate video. But everybody's gonna vote right now on what we want, right? And each resolution has its own perk or a debuff associated with it. So if I got this one voted on me, that means I could pillage for double the money, right? And we'll go over what pillaging is in a second. This one is for me to be able to build things cheaper, and this one is that everybody's going to get one. So I kind of like that. I want this to go through because I want one of these agents, right? So I'm going to support that, and then the vote goes through, and then you can see who voted for what and who got what in this Landsrad, okay? So there's another mechanic that's, so you see I got the agent from the Landsrad here, so I'm going to put these agents to start. Usually you want them on Arrakis because early game you want extra authority so you can capture more villages as the game progresses. There's a mechanic in this game called pillaging. It's very important, and I'll show you what that is here in just one second. As we continue to capture villages, and our hegemony score is going to go up by 1600. So if my math is correct, I should have 2800 of the hedge here, and 2800, and there it is. Okay. Now, when you pass 2500 in your hegemony, your main base buildings unlock, and these are so important because these are what gives you all of your major boosts, okay? So to build a main base building, it costs 1,000 Solari and 500 Plascrete. So you can see this symbol comes up as soon as I got 1,000 Solari and 500 Plascrete. So I can build my main base buildings here. Now these all give you various boosts. You should read what each one of these do, right? And some of them are more essential than others, especially in the early game. And you can see that each one of these is a district, right? This is a single district because there's only one slot here. This is a 2-slot district here because there's 2 slots here. And this is a 3-slot district here, right? So if I was to put one yellow building here, that means I get the single slot district bonus, which is the same for all of them. It's 15% research for the district that I complete, which means that when I build my admin hall here, it's a yellow building. That means these are all my yellow techs. Yellow is associated with economy, red is associated with military, and blue is associated with politics. So when I build my single slot district building here, that means I get a 15% research bonus on all of my yellow buildings here, okay? Now, the 2-slot district bonuses are slightly different for each one, and you should read what each one of these does. So this one gives me 30 Solari production. This one gives me plus 10% military attack speed to my units. This one gives me plus 3 influence and plus 5 intel, which is here, and I'll talk about those in a second. And then the 3 slot gives you 10% Solari production, plus 20% max health to military units, and 150 max influence and 6 influence production, okay? Okay, so next we're going to talk about pillaging. Every faction in the game can pillage except for Atreides because they're Mr. Peaceful. So with Atreides, you can't pillage, but with these guys, I can pillage. So what happens is I can choose to kill these guys, and as now we're out of Plascrete, right? So we're gonna wait until we get more Plascrete to build more buildings. As I pillage here, so I have an option to capture, and then I have an option to pillage. If I pillage, I get 500 Solari, which is huge, right? So in the beginning of the game, you want to choose which villages you're pillaging and which villages you are going to capture. Now you can make that decision based on a couple of things. One is the proximity of the village to your main base, and two, what the village offers. In this case, this symbol means right here that this village will give my Plascrete factory 100% production. So this is a Plascrete village. They're super important, right? This is a spice village. Technically, as Fremen, I can pillage my spice village because I don't have to own the spice village as Fremen to harvest spice from it, but I chose to capture it. This village is an energy sources village. On other factions, you can build fuel cells here, which are extremely important for mechanical units. But for Fremen, they get to build a Fremen unique building, which we'll talk about unique characteristics of each faction as we do a faction breakdown of what makes each faction strong and weak and unique. In this case, it allows Fremen to build their unique building, which allows them to build ceremonial caves, which gives plus 5% military power. It's absolutely massive. So we're going to pillage this village. And as we pillage our village, we can see that all the texts that we have chosen so far to research are done. So we want to queue up our next text. We want to always make sure that we're researching our text because it's kind of like a race to see who can get the most powerful, the most fast, and who can conquer the most land and oppress the enemies or make alliances with people, etc. And just remember, if your Solari goes negative, meaning you don't have any Solari stocks, you will stop researching. And then your buildings will start getting deleted because they need to find a way to make sure that your upkeep is less than what you're producing, right? So I'm gonna pillage this village, and I'm gonna get 500 Solari for it, okay? And there you go. So there's our 500 Solari. Now what happens when you pillage a village is that it costs you 100% more authority to annex it, and that stacks. So that's why you have to be careful which villages you're pillaging and which villages you're not, because they become expensive to capture. Usually what you do is you select a couple of villages in the beginning of the game, you pillage them over and over and over again until you're ready to capture them at the end of the game, okay? The other thing that just appeared is a quest. These quests with this little diamond above them, if you complete these quests, they give you 300 points toward your hegemony score, and they usually have rewards associated with them. So in this case, if I kill 8 of these militias in these villages, like this would be 2, this would be another 2, this would be another 2, and this would be another 2, another 3 right here, that would be enough to complete this quest, get 300 hedge points, and I get a free Fedaykin, which is an elite unit of the Fremen, okay? The other resources we haven't talked about yet are influence and intel, and that's all the resources, which, guys, is a lot, and that's why this game can be a little complex, but once you get the hang of it, it's no problem. So influence is made from alliances, and it's also made from this building, which you can only put in neighboring regions. It's called a listening post. You can see it gives you +1 influence production, but it has to be neighboring a enemy village because you can't listen to, like, your own territories or neutral territories. There's also a special region where you can build them that doesn't require any neighbors, okay? And then intel is the same thing. It gives you +3 intel production when it's bordering an enemy village, okay? The other way you can get intel, like I was saying earlier, is if you put one of your agents, like you can see right now, my intel is +5. If I put my agent here, it gives me +8, but you run the risk of getting your agents captured if you put them on enemy factions. Okay? So, uh, that's all the resources in the game. Just a quick rundown, guys. We have our Solari, we have our Plascrete, we have our manpower, we have our spaceship parts, we have our water, we have our knowledge, we have our influence, and we have our intel. Okay? So let's play a little bit more of the early game. We have 60 authority here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to capture this region here. We're going to recruit another unit because we have enough manpower. And then we're going to try to get another 1,000 Solari and another 500 Plascrete for, I'm going to build another Plascrete building here, to build our next main base building. As we recruit agents, we want to assign them to our different areas here. So this is going to give me +10 Solari. And keep in mind, each agent has a special trait, right? This one counts as 2. So in this menu, when you assign an agent to one of these areas, you see it says level 1. And now here you can see this orange bar is going to start ticking because I signed an agent to it. When you get two levels on each one of these, your operations start to unlock. Okay, so in your espionage menu, you can see you have operations here. There are faction unique operations, and then there are global operations. These are the global ones where you have scav team, which gives you Solari per enemy killed in a region, leave order, which gives you 100 Solari per enemy unit left in the region once the operation's over, a decoy thumper, which calls a sandworm to the region. This is a Fremen unique one. Admin burden is a global one. EMP bomb is a global one. Awaken the people is a Fremen unique one, and defense breaches is a global one. So, and then there's infiltration cells and assassinations, which we're going to talk about in a separate video. But read all these. They require different levels, right? So for me to build a decoy thumper, I need 200 intel, 200 Solari, and I need Arrakis here to get to level 2. Right? Right now I'm halfway to level 2 because I'm already at level 1 and the counter's going toward level 2. So ideally, at the end of the game, you have enough agents on all of these areas where you unlock all of your advanced operations, right? And that's usually done by assigning at least 2 agents, barring that one of them isn't a Bene Gesserit, which counts as 2 agents. You get to assign them to each one of these, and then they will build levels, and then once you build levels, you get to unlock your operations, okay? So we're going to continue here. We're going to capture another village, and we're going to try to save up Solari for at least another spice harvester, which we'll get here in a second because we can harvest some more spice here. And while this is happening, this gives me a chance to talk about points of interest on the map. So we're going to capture this village. Let's pause it here for a second. On the map, you have these things, okay? You read each one of these. So if I research this right here, I get my reward is that a random military development like this one will be advanced. If I research here, it'll be a random economic development. If I pick this up, I get spice. So some of them you have to research, some of them you have to send units to, some of them you pay for. You have to get familiar with the points of interest on the map because they're very important. In the beginning of the game, the best thing to do is to research the ones that advance your tech trees because you're trying to unlock your tech faster than everybody else, and you get to advance in technical development just by researching these. Now, to research these, you need to have an agent on Arrakis. And the more agents you have on Arrakis, you see here, it says use Arrakis information agents. The more agents you have on Arrakis, the faster these will research, right? And some of them are way more important than others, but later in the game, these don't become so important because you will have your tech tree researched already, and then these will become important, which means you get intel from these, and you need intel for operations, which you need for combat. And we'll talk about combat and operations a little bit later, but right now we're just trying to get through the basics. We're trying to get through understanding resources, resource management, capturing villages, researching your tech tree, building your main base, and just understanding how to capture and pillage villages, right? So let's continue. So we're going to research our point of interest here, and we're going to capture this village. And then while this is happening, I can send a unit over here to collect this 77 spice. Okay, and you can see the progression bar is collecting here. Now, when a unit is at a point of interest, he's not losing supply in an unowned village. Just keep that in mind. So you can send a unit out to the deep desert, and he won't lose supply, but the deep desert, you lose a lot of supply quick, so you got to be careful. Okay, this right here, the Chom market opens up in the second month of the game, and the Landsrad, you can see, is every 20 something days. So the next Landsrad is in 9 days. So once the Chom market opens up, you can buy shares on the market. These cost Solari. This is one of the ways you can win the game. If you build a super mighty economy and you buy up to 50% of the market, you will win the game instantly. Okay, and it says right here, economic victory, 50% Chom majority shareholder. But just because you may not be going for a win condition does not mean that you shouldn't buy Chom. And let me explain why. When you buy Chom, you can get these two bonuses, which is at 10% it gives you +2 influence production and allows you to buy mercenaries, which is huge because mercenaries can tilt the fight later in the game. And then at 30%, this is the massive one, you get 15% military power and 200 max influence. To get to 30% is very, very good in any game. Later at the end of the game also, you can sell your Chom shares because they become incredibly valuable. And when you're kind of low on Solari, or you need to buy a lot of mercenaries real quick, or you need to build a nuke, or you need to build a military factory, which are like really expensive buildings, you can hit a sell here and you can get a lot of Solari real quick. So, it's just like the real world in the stock market. If you buy now and sell later, it's worth the investment. Okay, so keep in mind to periodically check the Chom market, the Landsrad, and your tech trees, which are all right here, and your agents. To make sure that things are progressing here, and you're buying Chom and etc. The last menu, and this is the very last menu of the game, is your relationships with these other factions. To send somebody a truce means that your units and their units can't attack each other unless you choose to betray them. And let's just talk about what it means to be in truce with somebody. If you're in truce with somebody, you get some benefits. For example, you can send them treaties, which cost you a little bit of authority production, and you can unlock the treaties through, like in your developments. You can see this one unlocks the research agreement. This one here will unlock the economic agreement, and then this one here will unlock the political agreement. So they're all basically, generally speaking, in the same place on their tech trees, on the tech trees of all 5 factions. The treaties you send somebody, especially knowledge early game and Solari early game, are really important. And so for me to ally Vernius would cost me 38 influence, which I don't have right now. I only have 29 influence, and I'm only generating 2 a day. So I'm going to have to wait to send somebody an alliance. And once I'm allied with them, in his case, I get all of his tech, which is a unique thing. But we'll talk about that later when we talk about Vernius. I can get all of his tech, and I can send him knowledge treaties, which will give me +2 knowledge for the cost of -10% authority production, and I'll get +3 Solari and +3% Solari for, again, -10% authority production. So you choose who you want to ally early. Do you necessarily want to ally your neighbors who you might be fighting with early? Maybe, maybe not. Do you want to ally your cross map who's very far away and you can't touch? Most likely, yeah. So setting out treaties early is important. Now, to break a treaty also costs influence. And if you want to break a treaty with somebody without paying the influence, you can betray them. To betray them, it'll cost you Landsrad, which in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have chose Fremen to do this tutorial on, because Fremen don't have Landsrad. They're the only faction in the game that don't have Landsrad. But here's what Landsrad is. You can see right here, everybody starts out with some sort of Landsrat score right here. It says Landsrat stock, okay? So the smugglers get Landsrat after they hit 5,000 hegemony. So in the beginning, betrayals don't cost them anything except some Solari. Fremen never get Landsrat. So when the Fremen betray, they lose Solari production, which for Fremen is kind of negligible. It's actually really good to betray on Fremen because when you betray somebody, you get a damage bonus against them at the cost of some Solari production. Now, for these guys, if he was to betray me, he loses Landsrat standing, and you get a host of benefits from having high Landsrat standing. For having high Landsrat standing, you become eligible for charters here, which come up as they get bumped up here. And I'm going to do a whole video on the Landsrat, so don't worry about it. But um, you have to have a certain amount of Landsrat standing, and then like for example, for Eye of the Council, I think you have to have 5 or 7 agents recruited and a minimum of 250 Landsrat. And then if you win this charter, you get 2 really good agents that can't be captured. It's a really good charter. And then these all others have their host of benefits. And the final charter is the Dune Governorship Charter. At 450 Landsrat, if you can get this charter and hold this charter, you win the game. And we'll talk about how to win the game as Dune Governor later in the series as it progresses. Okay? So you see my guy researched this, I can resolve it, and I just got 77 spice from that. So that what I want to do now is I want to find some more villages to pillage as I build more water. Because I want to get to build out another spice harvester, which for Fremen costs 600 Solari. So I have to pick a village that I'm not going to capture, that I'm going to pillage. And for Fremen, they don't have to capture spice fields. So you can see my research here finished. I'm going to resolve that, and I'm going to research another technical research here. I'm going to research military here, right? So you can see because this completed without me having to research it all the way was because I picked up that point of interest. Just like here, watch what happens to survival. Because it's the first one, the researches for that you pick up off the map for the tech trees are random, but because it's the first one, because you can see the tech tree splinters off here, this tech is required to research any of these techs. So once I pick up this POI after it completes, you can see it counting down. Let's go pillage our spice field here. You'll see that the progression for survival training will increase without me having to actually research it, because right now I'm researching down here. So that's why it's super important in the early game to pick up these research POIs. They're very important. I'm going to build a maintenance center here. Maintenance centers are important because they reduce the Solari upkeep by 20% of all the regions that are neighboring the village with the maintenance center. And you can see here, this village has a total upkeep of 44 Solari, and I can reduce that by 20%. I can reduce my upkeep here of 28 Solari by 20%. It's super important. So I'm going to continue to build out my villages, build my maintenance center. I have 20 water. I'm good. I'm going down here to pillage. And I can grab, as Fremen, I can grab this POI to get 53 authority. Like, that's what this POI does. It's really good. But I want to show you how the research POIs work here after we're done pillaging this village and getting some Solari. We're going to pillage that. Make sure we don't get eaten by the sandworm. As long as you're standing on rocks, the sandworm can't eat you. Okay, we got another agent. This agent's really good. It's a sick doctor, but, you know, we're not going to worry about that here. We're just trying to stick to the basement. We're going to sit here and wait until the sandworm goes away so that we don't get eaten, and then we're going to continue to build our buildings. Now remember, the more buildings we build, the more negative we get, but it's okay to be negative as long as you can pillage. So look, I just picked up that POI, and you can see how much progression of survival training I got without actually researching it. And as the techs continue to get researched, they scale in cost. So what you want to do is you constantly want to increase your knowledge base. I'm at 8. You want to constantly increase your knowledge base to offset the cost of scaling of each research that you research. And so a good number that you want to strive for in each game is like 20 to 30 knowledge. Anything above 30, you're just like killing it, right? But like 20 to 30 knowledge is enough knowledge to get you to the late game. having acquired all your necessary techs so that you can get all the stuff that you need. Okay, so we're gonna run our units back to safety, and we can do two things here. We can go back here to resupply, or we can capture this village. You can see our water's running out, but there's only 2 militia here, and they're ranged militia, so they should be relatively easy to kill. And we have 125 authority, so we're gonna capture this village. And now you can see with my maintenance center on +1 on Solari, and I'm gonna recruit a spice harvester, and I'm gonna go harvest some spice to increase my Solari production, right? And that's kind of like what you're doing in the beginning. You're capturing villages, you're voting in the lands rad, you're getting your agents, you're assigning your agents, you're building your buildings up, and most importantly, you're building your main base. You're building out your main base. Okay, so you can see some of the buffs, and these are all buffs here in the lands rad here. So I don't want to vote here because I want to show you how it is to send a truce. And you're sending out alliances, and you're figuring out if you want to fight somebody early or if you want to ally people. So let me just send a truce to Vernius. He's going to accept it because he's AI. So he accepted my truce, and now I can send him research agreements for the cost of 10 authority, and he'll accept all those. And then, look, my Solar just went up because I got a money treaty with him. I'm going to send my spice harvester out, and we're going to harvest some spice right here. And that's the early game, and you're just expanding. You're seeing where your neighbors are. You can choose your ornithopters to scout around, see who spawned where, what specials do they have. If somebody has a really good spawn, you can kind of let everybody know, hey, this guy's got an incredible spawn. He's got a lot of specials, and that way the lobby can gang up on him and mess him up. You're pillaging. Okay, so this village is pillageable in 2 days. I want to keep pillaging this village to get money. And you can see my money went up because my spice harvester started harvesting. Now in spice harvesters, you can add crew for the cost. So these techs are done, so I'm going to continue to research more techs. You can add crew to your spice harvester. Watch my Solari production. It's at 19 right now. I added one crew. It went up to 22, right? I added another crew. It went up to 25, and that cost me manpower. So you want to crew out your spice harvesters. You want to produce a lot of Solari. Okay, you want to pick up these research POIs early, right? You want to keep assigning your agents as you get your agents assigned to build your levels so that you can unlock your operations, right? And this is how you build an operation, right? So say I want a scav team because this is really good for pillaging. I have 200 intel. I'm going to build a scav team, and you can see my scav team will be ready in 3 days, okay? So once this scav team is ready, I'm going to use it because scav team gives me more money for pillaging, gives me plus 20% for pillaging, and it gives me 25%, 25 Solari of the max, 25% of the max health of each units that die in each region. So let's pillage that. Vernius just patented something. Okay, it's nothing that we have to worry about. Oh yeah, he did. He patented sky gazing, which is really annoying, but that's a Vernius unique thing. And now you can see I killed 8 militia, and I get my free Fedakeen right here, right? I guess for the basics, we should also cover the armory. And so once you get your first red tech, it'll unlock the armory where you can choose the upgrades for each unit. And once you choose the upgrade for each unit, that upgrade is there until the end of the game. And if you want to change it, it'll cost you 500 Solari to change it. Now each faction, to get your first armory slot upgrade, you have to unlock your first red tech. But for the other factions, they're located in the red tech tree. So Fremen, for example, you can see at Stalwart Advance, it says unlock the second gear slot in the armory. And for other factions, like for Harkonnen, it'll be down here. For Carino, it'll be over here. So you just have to read each faction's tech tree and figure out how to get your second armory slot. Your armory upgrades are essential. If you don't have your armory kitted out properly, you're probably going to lose the fight. Especially if it's just like a 65 versus a 65 CP fight, you're going to lose the fight. Okay? So, for the basics, I think this is good, but there is one last thing I want to cover, and that's how to increase your army count. Okay, so let's go pillage this village. I'm going to show you how to use the operation. To use an operation, you click it up here, and then you click it on this village, and then you can see that this operation is in effect for 2 days. And so now, because this scav team is in effect, I should get money for each unit that dies. and I'll get an extra 20% for pillaging this village. So it's great to use Scav Team when you are fighting large scale fights. Okay, you see that money that I just got for killing the unit, and I'm gonna pillage that. And there can only be one Scav team active in each region at a time. So whoever throws it down first gets the bonus. Okay? Alright, so now we're gonna build our second building. Let's talk about these buildings for a second, okay? The essential buildings are Research Center, Admin Hall, and Command Post, okay? These are the most important buildings from yellow, red, and blue. The Research Center gives you incredible amounts of knowledge, gives you plus 20% knowledge, which in the early game is huge. It's usually the first of two buildings built, and then the Command Post. And you can see the Command Post gives you plus 10 command points. Your command points are right here. Right now, you start off with 40. If you research recruitment initiative, it'll give you plus 5. And then when you get down here, you get plus 10. So if you have your command post built, which I'll be able to build here as soon as I finish this in 2 days, 2 in-game days, I'll get plus 10 and plus 5. I'll be at 55 CP with this research and command post built. I need to get here to get 65. 65 is the max. Now, there's one way to get above the max. Some points of interest on the map allow you to recruit units. Okay, so you can get some extra units in your army from recruiting them off the map, and that can possibly swing or tilt the fight if you have a couple of them stocked up. These units, however, they do have a lifespan of 90 in-game days, and they can't heal, right? They're not part of like your regular army. So you'll see, like, once this is done recruiting and once I build the command post, this number will go up. And it's very important to balance the early game from getting essential yellow, blue, and red text, depending on if you have a really close neighbor and you need to have a large army to protect yourself or attack them, or if you have a relatively safe spawn and you can greed out some extra and um, yellow and blue text. So you can see I unlocked the command post. I'm continuing down my tech tree here, and now I have 45 CP because I got the plus 5 just from this tech, and now I'm going to have 55 once this building finishes in 7 days. So I'm going to continue to recruit. Now the other super important tech is parallel training, because it unlocks a very important building inside your main base, which is the barracks right here, military academy. So it allows you 2 training slots. So after you get, so you see I just got that unit from researching. So it says here that he's going to die in 59 days and he can't recover health. So you get to keep him for like 3 in-game months, 2 in-game months. Once you get parallel training and you build this building here, you can recruit 6 units at a time. That's the most in the game. So the most you can do with army is to have 65 CP with a couple of extra units that you picked up off the map, and you can recruit 6 at a time. So at the end of the game, when you're playing in a game where everybody pretty much knows what they're doing, you're going to have 65 CP worth of units versus 65 CP worth of units. Now, each unit has a different count. This one costs 5, because you can see right there it says requirement 5 command points. This one costs 4, this one costs 3, and this one costs 4. Your Spire, your military ship, does not cost you anything.
Let's get to bit.
Okay, that guy wanted a crazy trade that I can't accept. Okay, so I'm at 6.3k hedge. At 5,000 hedge, I get to build the unique building for Fremen called a recycling plant. And I think I want to do that for this video because it is part of the basics. I would really like to get this right here, but I don't think I have the votes unless they somehow don't vote for it. And I did not get it, sadly. So we're gonna have to go pillage some stuff. Now I'm gonna pillage a village here that I would normally capture, but for the sake of education, actually I can just pillage the spice field again, because the spice field is pillageable now. You can see it's ready to be pillaged. Whereas this village I pillaged, I can't pillage it again for another 6 days until that counter is done. So I'm gonna pillage this village. I'm gonna try to get a scav team down on it so I can get more money, and I'm gonna build my recycling plant. Now for Fremen, it's the recycling plant, and for the other factions, it is the, let's cancel that. So you have to have the operation active, then you hit the pillage button, and then you get the bonus from the operation. But I'm going to build the recycling plant, and I'm going to show you how to get spaceship parts, which is the last resource that we are going to talk about in this video. Okay? So once this builds in 7 days, I will show you how to get the last resource in the game, which can only be gotten from spaceship parts or from renegade bases, none of which have spawned yet, but I'll cover that in another video later. So this is going to be built here, and then we're going to start trading for our spaceship parts. Okay, and now you see my max limit is 55. I have 177 manpower banked, so I can recruit a bunch of units. I just used up all my manpower, and I'm building an army. Just keep in mind, when you're building an army, it costs you army upkeep. So you have to have an economy, which you're either going to get through harvesting spice and selling spice, or building these buildings here, which can be built in the rare elements regions. They're called the processing plants. And that's basically the only way to get money in the game, except for smugglers who have a unique mechanic, which we're not going to talk about here for a second. But we're going to defend our village from these raiders. Now, if I want to recruit militia into my village, I can recruit for a cost of 25 CP. I can recruit the heavy militia or regular militia for 10. So you see I recruited those. That way, if these guys come, the militia will fight them off. Just be careful in the late game, because in the late game, the raiders, they get extremely strong, and you lose villages even if you have a fully vetted out militia village defense. So the spacing parts are what you need to build your ships, which really in the game, like, you can have a handful of non-main ships, but really you're just looking for each faction's unique ship, and we'll talk about that in the faction specific videos. But here I'm going to build the recycling plant, which for Fremen costs 10 water, 1,000 Solari, and 500 plascrete. But because I'm building it in a village where there's a handyman quirk, it costs minus 40%. It's cheaper. So to trade for spacing parts, I click the building, and you can see I can trade my plascrete or my Solari for spacing guild parts. I'm going to trade plascrete because my Solari is not looking too hot right now. And now I'm getting +1 parts, or +2 because I have the spacing cruiser wreck, which gives me +1 extra parts, which is why this special region is really important. So once I get to 100, I'll be able to build my big boy out here, and he can support my army, and it's a really cool ship that's unique to the Fremen. As far as basic goes, it's a lot to digest. I think we should stop here. I think one more thing that I want to cover is what type of villages there are. There's really only 4 or 5 types of villages. So you have these regions, which will give you +20 Solari for a research hub in it. And then you have spice regions. You have rare earth elements regions. You have energy sources, which allows you to build fuel cells, or in the Fremen case, ceremonial caves. And then you have, I think that's it, right? And then plascrete regions, which allows you to get more plascrete. Each village, you'll have to read carefully what each village does. Sometimes a village will be empty, like this one, and it'll have good quirks. But in this case, this one's all right. It's nothing special. I would just pillage this one over and over again. But a village like this one is really good. Like, for example, this quirk, if I have one of each type of building, like a red, a blue, and a yellow, then I get +2 intel. And intel is really important because I needed to get my operations, right? And then this one has local sourcing, which if it has one of each color, like if I just build this thing here, I have one of each color, then I get +10 Solari. And then if I get +20% statecraft resource production. So this, because this is blue buildings or statecraft buildings, I get +20%. So each village has something special to offer you, right? If I have one of each color here, let's just vote real quick, just for the sake of the explanation. If I build one of each building here, then I get 20% production out of each village, right? Or if I build a yellow village, I get +3 per each economy building, because the yellow buildings are the economy buildings. Okay, so in summary, here's the things we covered so far. We covered what the resources are in the game: Solari, plascrete, manpower, spacing guild parts, water, authority, knowledge, influence, and intel. We covered how to capture villages, how to defend villages, how to put militia in villages, how to build in villages, how to recruit your army. We covered how to build out your main base. We covered how to trade
How can
with your enemies and or friends, but everybody at the end of the game becomes your enemy. And we covered what each village does. We covered we covered how to harvest spice. We covered how much spice to sell, right? And what the rate is. We didn't really cover the rate, but you can see that one spice is 2.5 Solari. So if I sell a lot of spice, I am gonna make more Solari, but I'm also at the risk of missing tax. So you have to be careful. You have to watch every 20 something days. You're gonna have to pay tax to the Spacing Guild, and if your slider's all the way down here, if you've depleted your spice stocks, you're not going to be able to pay tax. Each tax that you pay gives you more hegemony points. And when you build a research center, instead of getting 1,000 per tax paid, you're going to get 1,200, which is why it's important to get your research center built early, because you want to get as much toward your score as possible, right? So let's pillage this village again, and I'm going to build a research center in my 2 slot here. Once I get 1,000 Solari here, 1,000 Solari. Come on, there it goes. Okay, now I built my so now when I pay my tax in 11 days, my score is 7,300. But I'm gonna get 1,200 for my tax, so it's gonna make my score 8,500. And you can press tab and you can see where everybody is, right? You can see this guy's up to 8.9k hedge. This guy's up to 6.6k hedge. This guy's up to 9,000.1 hedge. Their Landsrat standing is here to see if they're threatening a gov win or not. And then you open up the Chome market and you can see this guy's already bought 23% of the Chome market. This guy's already bought 18% of the Chome market. So they're like threatening different win conditions. So you have to be careful. You have to be very careful to make sure that nobody gets too far out in the lead, and you start conspiring with everybody in the lobby to make sure that they're not letting that guy just win for free. Okay? So our tax is going to be due. So let's just max sell here. Our tax is going to be due in 9 in-game days, which should go by rather quick because I'm playing it on 2x just for educational purposes. And after you pay your tax, you're going to see that my spice stock is not going to be enough to pay the next tax. So I'm going to have to sell less, which means after I sell less, I'm going to make less money. And the spice rate is very high right now. It's 2.5. Now if I build this building here, if I research this tech right here and I build this building, when the spice rate is above 2.2, then I'm going to be able to get even more for my spice. But that's a yellow tech, which we'll talk about when it comes to the Chome win condition, because we're going to do a video on each win condition individually. Okay, so our tax is in 6 days. Man, it's going slow. I guess we can just continue to research our techs here and continue to pillage, and we should capture more territories because we're sitting on too much authority. You never want to float this much authority. The only reason that's happening is because this is a tutorial. I'm not actually playing. This is the other POI that you can buy off the map that'll give you 2 units, or you can research it and get 22 manpower. These are really handy to get more units in your army past your 65 point limit. So we're going to capture this village. Okay, we got plenty of water, and then our tax is due in 3 days. So our score is going to go up from whatever it is after we capture this village, which will be plus 1,600 because it's a special region, right? This is the Mundu Vale. So our score will be 8,900. Our hedge score will be 8,900. And then we're going to pay our tax, which should put us over 10,000. Now, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens after 10,000, which I'm kind of glad that we're getting here, actually. Okay, so we're going to build our next main base building. And now, so 8,900 plus 1,200, this should bring us to 10,100 right here after this tax is paid. Okay. So after this tax, I'm gonna put militia in my village. I'm gonna put a turret here because there's a neighbor, right? I want to defend it, capture that. The tax is gonna hit after this Landsrat Council. I'm not gonna vote here just for the sake of education. Okay, so tax hit. Okay, now I'm at 10,000. At 10,000, you get to unlock your hero. You get to choose a hero. The first time you recruit them, they're free and they recruit instantly. So the thing with choosing your heroes, you have to be very careful. Once you choose them, you can't recruit the other hero. So I'm going to choose Othame. And you can see Othame is spawned, and he's my hero. And he comes with a host of special abilities and things like that. He's a very valuable unit. You can rebuild them, but they cost a lot to rebuild. Now you can see my score is 10,100, or it was until I captured that village. And now I don't have enough to pay my next spice tax unless I move my slider up here and I stop selling as much spice. And when this number is green, I can pay my tax. And but I make less Solari because I'm not selling as much spice. So that's actually the perfect place to stop. We got to 10,000. Okay. Quick recap one last time. Here's your resources: Plascrete, Solari, Plascrete, Manpower, Space and Guild parts, Water, Authority, Knowledge, Influence, Intel. At 5,000 hedge, you get to unlock your major buildings, such as the recycling plant, Space and Guild parts. You can also build your military factory, which I don't have the money for. You can build an alloy furnace, which will help. Okay, somebody just betrayed me. Vernius is betraying me. He wants to attack me because he wants this village. Good for him. He's an AI. I'm going to smoke him real quick. Maybe. I don't know what he's doing. Okay, yeah. So he's going to come in. I'm going to drop a scab team in here because it's going to give me money for killing it. He's going to run away because he's a coward. Okay. So we talked about our resources. We talked about how to vote. We talked about how to assign your agents. So you can see I have multiple levels here, 2 and 2 and 2 now, so I can get my operations. We talked about pillaging. We talked about building villages. We talked about capturing villages. We talked about special quirks of each village. We talked about your main base buildings. We talked about a regular village and a special village, and we also want to, in our special villages, we want to build these kind of buildings here, crafts workshops, which is going to give me a passive score to my hedge, right? And this is how you get ahead. So here's a special village. I'm gonna build a crafts workshop, which you unlock over here in the green tech tree. So usually you want to get some yellow, some blue, some red, and then eventually everybody goes down here because they need passive score to help them win. And that's basically like all the basics. It's a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more in the series. The only Dune Spice Wars guide you'll ever need. This was part 1, the basics. The basics are a lot, but once you get the basics down and you start figuring out how to get your production online, how to build your main base out, how to recruit your army, how to harvest, collect, and sell spice, how to get your knowledge up, research your trees and whatever, then we can get into some of the other things in the game, such as preparing for the mid game, preparing for the late game, alliances versus conflict. We're going to get into faction specifics, each faction, what they do, what they're good at, what they're bad at. And we're going to get, and then I think the final videos in the series are going to be mastering the late game, because the late game is where you win or you lose. And the whole point of the game is to get to the late game where you're at least in a position to win. Just because remember, in the free-for-all game mode, you have a 25% chance to win the game at the start of every game. So you have to at least put yourself in a position to be able to try to win at the end. And a lot of that has to do with how you expand, what villages are you taking, what alliances you had, who you decided to attack, who you decided to not attack, and then you're kind of in a position at the end of the game to at least have a chance to win. So don't get frustrated if you're not winning games. It's always best to just go into multiplayer, get stomped, learn the hard way, learn through fire, just like all of us did, and then eventually you'll be winning Dune Spice Wars games, especially if you watch the rest of the videos in this guide. So thank you guys so much. Cream the Legend. In the description down below is the link to our community Discord for this game. Join us. Ask us questions in the general chat. Everybody in the community is super nice, super friendly. They want to help you because it's a small community. We want to grow the community because that way we have more players to play the game with and enjoy and have fun. And we'll see you guys for the next video. Thanks.